take a minute here and just say that for about the next half hour, we'll be shifting over to talk about the proposal process. We have some representatives from sponsored projects who will talk about some aspects of the pre-award and post-award process. We'll begin with a short interview or short overview by Jessica Best, who is the Associate Vice President for Research Administration. And she's has with her team that will talk about, as I mentioned, the pre-award and post-award process. So I guess to keep on schedule, I'll just let you get started, Jessica.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to have the opportunity to talk with all of you today. I hope your morning has been going well. So as Karen mentioned, I'm here myself and my team are here to talk about research support. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So we are Sponsored Project Services. Why isn't my screen is not advancing. There we go. So who we are and what we do. So the Research Foundation at the university is led by the Vice President for Research and Economic Development. For those of you who know, just please excuse me if I'm saying something repetitive. These are the different areas that are support areas for all of you under the VPRED's office. We are Sponsored Project Services, one of the 8 units, and our overall goal is to really just be there for everything that you need logistically when you are doing a proposal, managing your award, and then close out. So we really are here for that. And at the same time, to reduce administrative burden, which is a very big focus for all of us right now. So to put it, very succinctly, we do pre-award services. Then there's award services while it's going on, and then it's post-award where we help you close out. We do everything from compliance to making sure the sponsors responding, getting what they need, to helping you order things, to making sure your budget is on track. We need a no-cost extension, whatever that is. And our pre and post-award folks will talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But we also work very closely with the other offices. So Jill's office, for one, but also the CRO, if you are somebody who will be doing clinical research. We also work with the university offices for what we're needing. So purchasing, payroll, human resources. We really kind of tie all of the administrative support together for your research. What we don't do, unfortunately right now, is we don't help with prospecting. There are other offices, including Jill's, that helps with prospecting. And we don't really do the enhancements of your proposals. That's really the research advancement group, and again, in Jill's office. But what we do is everything outside of that. We are really the nuts and bolts of making sure that you get your proposal out the door on time and that your award is managed properly. So while we do that, we have 2 ways that we're looking at. So right now, and you may have heard a little bit about that, is currently we run on centralized services. So that is basically the SPS is a centralized office. We are responsible for all of the pre and post award support. Some decanal units have people here and there, but it's very inconsistent across the campus. And as we have this goal to be a top 25 public research institution, we are shifting how we support all of you in the future. So we are moving, and we are currently working on implementing a centrally managed, locally deployed support system, where the central office will now be focusing on what I'm going to call the outward look. So anything that's risk for the university, communications with the sponsor themselves, subawards, all external entities. And that is going to allow the locally deployed people within your units to really be inward facing specifically for you as the PIs. And that is really, we're really excited about this transition, so that it's putting equal services for everybody in the units, regardless of whether it's your first award or your first proposal, or it's your 10th one, whether it's $5,000 or 50 million. We want a standardized level of service that all PIs can expect across the university. So that, what we're looking for is in the green box. We're looking to have these efficiencies and better support services for all of you. You can read through that on your own. But really to develop that relationship, that one-on-one relationship that you will have with your support team now that you have somebody within your unit itself. One of our big wins that we're hoping to really affect all of you in the future is this finance and award manager. It's a new position created at the university through the project that we've been working on. And really what that is that it's a single point of contact for you for all post-award needs. So once you get an award, you have one person that you will meet with periodically at a cadence that you guys will determine together, but they will make sure that everything administrative that you're aware of, that you're answering, and that you're getting what you need. So if there's something that's stuck in the bureaucracy in the channels, we will, that position will follow up on it. If there's something you need to order, or you need to hire a postdoc, or you need a no-cost extension, but you don't even know you need a no-cost extension yet because you have so many things happening right now. That person is really your consultant for everything that you need. So it really is your concierge. This is something that the provost had challenged us when we were looking at developing a new model. Is I want to know what the concierge level of service would be for the PI. And that's really what we are modeling this new support system after. So we're very excited about that. We're looking at implementation for the health sciences, probably starting around the January timeframe. It'll be a phased approach, but right now we have our services still available that Jeff and Megan will talk about. And then, we have this to look forward to too, but it's going to be a shift, but hopefully you'll see very customized service for what you as your own PI need and what your support is. So that actually is the extent of what I had to say this morning, at least sharing through slides. If anybody has some overview questions, we can kind of do that now, or we can just move into Jeff, our pre-award director. It has a few thoughts to share also on our services for proposal preparation.
All right. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Okay. I'm on 3 different screens, so it's a little bit difficult. So thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Schieder. I am the pre-award director here in Sponsored Projects. I've been in Sponsored Projects for 23 years now, and I've been in this position since 2016. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the pre-award side, and this a couple of slides I have here. It was designed for mostly newer faculty and staff, and it's very generalized. So I just want to state that out front. So this is just a little picture of what we call the project life cycle. It starts at the proposal development, runs through submission, and then award acceptance, award management, and eventually award closeout. I'll be touching on the first 2 items, the proposal development and submission. First off, I just wanted to point out there's actually kind of 2 different entities that are involved in the proposal. One is the actual physical performance sites, which is typically a UB site. And then there's also the Research Foundation for SUNY. The Research Foundation is a 501c3 organization that serves as a fiscal administrator for any sponsored project that comes into the university. And the RF does this for every SUNY campus. So in any type of proposal that is submitted, any type of award that is received by the university has to be through the Research Foundation. So when we're filling out applications, the applicant is going to be the research foundation, and any contract or award we receive, the recipient is going to be the research foundation. One other thing I wanted to point out is that faculty are not authorized to sign proposals or agreements. We run into trouble with that every so often, but only staff at SPS are delegated by Venu, who is the RFOM that has signatory authority that can legally bind the research foundation. Okay, so moving into actual proposal development, what are the first steps? So the first thing that you always want to start off with is the guidelines. The guidelines are the document that it's gonna put up the constraints about what you can and what you can do, what you can ask for. So it's really important to go through the guidelines. What is the due date? That is kind of the number one thing that we need to know when we're submitting proposal. Are there any type of salary caps or other type of budget limitations? Are certain items unallowable? All of that will be outlined in the guidelines. Another part of the proposal development is that our office works on is to confirm that the proposal is eligible to be submitted. Some proposals have specific guidance on either what type of organization can submit, or you have to have certain qualifications, or certain criteria have to be met in order to be eligible to submit. Another aspect of that is the PI eligibility. UB has a PI eligibility policy where only certain titles, HR titles, are allowed to submit. Most faculty, if you have a faculty appointment, that's fine, you can be a PI. Once it goes down to like a director level or other staff, then it runs into issues. There's a process in order to get approved to be a PI or co-PI. So work with your SPS contact, and we can help you work through that. Again, going back to the guidelines, requirements for starting a budget, pretty simple. Start date, duration, what an indirect cost rate is, and these should all be outlined in the guidelines. In addition to the sponsor guidelines, there's also other policy considerations. There's RF and UB and SUNY policies. For instance, UB has a policy on budgeting for tuition. There's a PI eligibility policy that I just talked about. That we also have an IDC policy. So all of those things are in addition to the sponsor guidelines, we have to take into account when we are developing a budget. In addition to that, there might be additional guidelines within requirements within the guidelines. Some require a conflict of interest review, which is kind of an additional process that we have to go through. There might be institutional letters, either that have to be signed by our office or from a chair or a dean. So all of those things have to be kind of fleshed out in the solicitation. As you see, all of this takes time. And so the sooner that you can start working on this, the sooner that you reach out to our office, the sooner we can identify these requirements, and the sooner we can get working on them. So parts of a proposal. I'm not going to go through each one individually, but if you look at that, most of these fall on the PI or departmental staff. I'll point out the ones that SPS that works on. One is the cover page, and that's mostly for institutional information, again, to make sure that the applicant is the RF. Sometimes the requirement for certain types of institutional codes, like our UEI number or our TIN tax ID number, are required. So we want to make sure that that is all accurate when it's submitted to the sponsor. Jumping down to the budget. The budget is something that is worked on between the PI and our proposal specialists. That is kind of an iterative process. It usually goes back and forth a number of times until the budget is finalized, but we're very much working with the PIs on the budget. And the other thing that SPS really works on are various representations and certifications that are sometimes required to go within a proposal. One is just an example that comes to the top of my head is there's sometimes a lobbying form that has to be submitted with some federal proposals. And just a quick note on there for any clinical faculty that are on the call, that if you're clinical faculty and you're working with human subjects, reach out to Roseanne Johnson at the CRO office, as there may be institutional fees that have to be included in the budget that you as a faculty member and even us as SPS may not know about. And Roseanne's really the expert on that. So moving on to proposal submission. So what are kind of the next steps once we kind of have all the guidelines, we're kind of working through it. In order to finalize it, we need to finalize the budget. There is something that's called the CLIC form, the CLIC grant proposal form. And I think Tracy will, in a little bit later, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the CLIC form serves essentially as the institutional approval for that proposal. And then after the proposal is finalized, it should run through SPS one additional time for a final review for compliance, and then the proposal is submitted. Most times this will go directly through our office. There are certain sites, certain sponsors that allow the PI or actually require the PI to submit. It's kind of a case-by-case basis, but 80% of the time it's going to run through our office. The submission deadlines. So UB has a policy on the submission deadlines. It's a 5-day deadline, where that means that the budget, the CLIC form, and all administrative forms should be complete by 5 days before the sponsor deadline. And administrative forms basically means everything other than the science. And in most proposals, that's considered the project description and or either the specific aims. And this is to try to, one, just to make sure that things are done on time, but two, in order to catch errors that would otherwise kick a proposal out and from not being reviewed at all. That's the one thing that I really fear, that a proposal is kicked out for an administrative reason that has nothing to do with the science. Just because something was missed, because we didn't have enough time to review it. I know NIH is starting to have a lot more bots review proposals before they even touch a human being. So there might be things that get thrown out just because a bot saw that something ran over a page limit. So we want to try and avoid that as much as possible. From an SPS perspective, our challenges and pain points, obviously the late submissions. We do 1,700 proposals a year, and we have 8 proposal specialists that work on a proposal. So, roughly they do about 200 a year. They're very stressed every day and trying to fit in a proposal when somebody submits it the day before. It's very taxing and it's stressful. So we try and we want to get you in the habit of submitting early, getting things done early, talking to us early, so that we can kind of stretch out the process as much as possible. Newer, inexperienced investigators, nothing inherently bad with that. It's just that they don't know a lot of the processes or systems, and it takes a little bit longer for them to learn, and we might have to just kind of walk them through a little bit. Investigator expectations. I know some investigators over the years have just assumed that we work only for them or their department. Again, there's 200 departments across campus. 1,700 proposals a year that go out, and we have very limited staff that have to touch everything. So we work for everybody, we support everybody, but we can't be there all the time for everybody all at once. Heavy sponsor deadlines. We have a NIH R01 deadline coming up on 10/5. We'll probably do 40, 50 proposals then. Hopefully they don't all kind of bunch up at the end. We have been contacted already for a number of proposals, which is great. They're starting early with exactly what we want. So hopefully this deadline will go nice and smoothly. And these last two bullets, I've noticed this a lot in the last few years, increasing number of complicated solicitations. There's a lot of industry and university collaborations that are going out. Training grants, I know, are being pushed, and those are difficult to manage or difficult to submit. And there's also individualized sponsor portals. Every sponsor has their own individualized portal, which has various degrees of user friendliness, and especially if it's a newer sponsor or newer portal, it takes time to kind of learn how that portal thinks. So again, try and build in as much time as possible so that we can get proposals out the door. And the last part about new compliance requirements, it seems like every year there's the feds through new things at us that are required. IT security, data security is kind of the new big thing, and we're kind of working through that. Lastly, what our advice would be to faculty, start early, contact us early in the process. Let us know that you want to submit. A month or two early is fantastic. Let us know. As soon as you know you want to submit something, let us know. It may sound silly, but adhere to the guidelines. They're there for a reason. They're kind of your constraints. You have to work within the constraints. Again, we don't want something tossed out that you've worked really hard on because we missed something that was in the guidelines. Ask questions. Again, we're here to support you. We want to see you do good. We want this research to go out the door. We want it to be funded, and we want to work with you too. So ask us questions. This is what we do. This is what we love. So ask us questions. And again, as I started, I'm going to end. Don't sign anything. Don't sign any proposals. Don't sign any agreements. If a sponsor sends you something to sign, send it to us. We may not be the office that does it or the people that do it, but more than likely we'll know who should be the responsible party. A lot of times it is us. Sometimes it's not, but we'll pass it along to the appropriate party. And that's it. I'm all set.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think you can't emphasize enough to start early. The proposal is just going to be much better if it's not rushed. Assuming that it gets awarded, then I guess I'm going to ask Megan to talk about the post-award process.
Sure, sounds good.
All right.
Okay, everyone should be able to see my screen at this point, hopefully. So in the post-award world, we take over after Jeff's group. We do your award management. We help with some of the financials and a lot of the allowability. And then there's another group within post-award that helps with the award closeout. So when you're looking at the award management piece, your main contact is going to be your award analyst. And that would be my position. I've been at sponsored projects about 10 years. And I did notice some names that I recognized on the call, so that's nice. And hello to everyone else that's new too. So we'll get into the first step is you would be getting your project task award number once you have your award set up, and that would come from a group called our account establishment group. And within that email, you'll have those numbers, and that's kind of like your key to everything. So whenever you're going to be emailing or calling your award analyst or even an agreement administrator for an active award, you're going to want to make sure that you include that number there, is that it really helps us and helps speed things along, and we can get your answers quicker. There's about, I want to say, 12 award analysts, and we each manage around 200 awards. So having that number really does help. We also will review your terms and conditions based on the sponsor guidelines. Some sponsors are a little bit more flexible than others. And there's some common transactions that we will help with. There are effort commitments based on a lot of sponsors, and we often refer to that as IFR, income funds reimbursable. And that would be for state employees, and we will basically pay back the state for the time that you're spending working on your research award, and we load that based on your budget. So whatever you budgeted your effort as is what we're going to load, unless we hear differently from you, which is an option. Some sponsors also have a reduction that is allowable without prior approval. It's all depending on the terms and conditions and the sponsor. You also can have RF payroll on your awards, and that would be initiated at the department level, but also reviewed after it goes through HR by our office for allowability to make sure you have funds, to make sure that the dates line up with your award. Sometimes there's some UBF payroll, which it's a lot more rare than the other two options. Some awards have personal service agreements, which we refer to as PSAs, and some awards are for fellowships, and those are actually paid through HR, and the form is submitted through HR. But again, the allowability lies with sponsored projects on that. Other transactions that you might have on your awards, you might have reimbursements via our Concur system, which would be travel and non-travel reimbursements for out-of-pocket expenditures. And when you're using that system, you do want to pay close attention to the allowable use of funds policy that UB has, because there are a couple stipulations based on the dollar amount and how long it takes you to request the reimbursement. So the quicker you can get your reimbursement in, the better. Independent contractors, and over the past few years, those have moved to being managed mostly through purchasing, but again, sponsored projects has the allowability on those, but they do go through a system called Shop Blue. Then there's participant stipends, which we see those a lot with NSF, National Science Foundation Awards. Subject payments, if you are in a department that has heavy subject activity, you may already be familiar with these, where you're paying your subjects, and there's a lot of different options. You can do a direct payment. The university has a US bank system, which is gift cards that are paid out through the US bank account. And you have to make sure that you have a reconciliation on that and everything like that, but it works pretty well. We also have things like regular cash advances that you can do, but in terms of risk, the US bank system is probably your best bet, or a direct payment to the subjects. There's also the procurement card, which is Amex, and that's managed through another office, but our office again has input on the allowability piece of things. And if you haven't already applied for a P card, if you have RF awards, you probably want to do that. It's quite convenient. Shop Blue again has independent contractors, but that's also our vendor payment system. So if you're looking to order supplies or for some kind of service, you're going to want to use the Shop Blue system, which is managed by procurement, but SPS is involved for that allowability. Our old system was the EREC system, and we do use it here and there, but it's mostly Shop Blue that you're going to be using for those vendor payments. Tuition, as Jeff mentioned, the university does have a tuition policy that you should be including tuition on your proposals, and you should be paying that tuition once you do have your awards for your graduate students. And then we also have our IDIs, which are interdepartmental invoices, and those are really service centers within UB that you would be using and then making the payments from your sponsored awards. And Committed effort, like I mentioned, we want to make sure that we're meeting our commitments. If we said we were going to do something, then we really need to do that. There are some allowable reductions based on the sponsor, but if it is over what the sponsor says is okay to reduce by, we do want to make sure that we're getting that sponsor approval. So it's just something to keep in mind. And you would reach out to your analyst for that. And then we would work with you, and then our agreement administrator would be the point of contact with the sponsor. If you are in a department that is an academic department and you can have summer effort, then your department's going to be submitting the summer effort to RF payroll, and you would go through that process, and then we would see it again for allowability, and we would also be tracking your effort. That would just apply to PIs that are academic employees. If you're a calendar employee, then it wouldn't apply to have the summer effort. Another fun topic is cost share. Some sponsors do have a mandatory cost share commitment that you would have to include in your proposal, and others don't. If they have the mandatory commitment that you have to include, then it is what it is, and we have to make sure that we have it in there, and we have to make sure that we're tracking it. Some sponsors don't require cost share. If they don't require it, it's safest to not include that in your proposal. If you do include it and your award is accepted, then it is an actual commitment. So if you said, you were going to use cost share for maybe a grad student or something like that, you're going to pay that grad student with state funds, and then we are going to have to track it and make sure that we meet that commitment. So it's important to keep in mind that it is a real commitment. So if you do put it in your proposals, just keep that in mind. And you would be contacting sponsored projects if you needed to do a rebudget. So some sponsors are what we call line item. So they would say, maybe you can spend $20,000 on salaries and you can spend $50,000 on supplies. If you see that as you're working on your project, you actually need less supplies, but you need more salary fringe type of support, we are able to rebudget into between those categories with sponsor approval, or some sponsors have different levels of flexibility. So they might say, hey, just stay within your budget within 10%. If you go over that 10%, then you're going to have to get our approval. So really, everything goes down to the terms and conditions that are included in your award. So it's something to keep in mind. Line item awards are a little bit more strict, and we want to make sure that we are staying within those lines, and we are, if we said that we were not going to have maybe tuition, we were not going to have tuition because we don't have grad students, and then something changes, we do need to get that sponsor approval to add a line for tuition there. And you would be working with your analyst on that to come up with a rebudget. You would have to supply a business purpose for it, the justification why you needed to make these changes. And then the analyst would reach out to the agreement administrator, and they would be the point of contact with the sponsor. And if you have questions on that down the line, if you have a line item award, you always can reach out to your analyst. No cost extensions. So if there is work remaining that you have to finish, a lot of sponsors do have this option where you can request a no cost extension. So you're just going to get additional time, but you won't get additional funds. So there is an internal form that you would first submit. It's available on the Sponsored Projects website. And you would be giving a justification, a timeline, things like that. And then we would be reaching out, our office, our agreement administrators would be reaching out to the sponsor for that approval. Some sponsors, you are able to have a first no cost extension, automatically assuming that there is still work to be done. It can't only be based on the fact that you have funding left. But if you have questions on that, again, reach out to our office. We have a system called Report Center, and all PIs are automatically granted access to Report Center when their awards are set up. And that is a way for you to manage your funding and to see if you have, maybe you submitted some expenditures and they haven't been applied yet. That is a way for you to manage, watching your funding while waiting for costs to be applied. If you need to have someone else added so that they can have access to your awards and report center, that can be done too. There's a form that you would have to fill out for that. Again, just reach out to your analyst and we can help. Also, on our website, we have all of your contacts listed for you based on your department. So that would be another tool that you're going to want to use, so you make sure that you're contacting the right person. And then another piece that is out of my area of expertise, but it is within post-award, is the accounts receivable position, and they are responsible for invoicing, and they do the final closeout of your award. There's different reporting that they would be involved in some of it. The final financial report, it would be submitted in sponsored projects. And then there's the final technical report that may or may not require a sponsored project signature. The invention report, property report. And then there's the non-financial reports process. And we do request that when you're submitting those non-financial reports, that you do copy the sponsored project services email on that, so that we are aware and we can document that that's been submitted. And then invoicing, sometimes our accounts receivable team will need PI input on some pieces of the invoicing, and sometimes they won't, but they are the experts in the invoicing piece of things in the post-award world. And they will also make sure that all of your reports have been submitted so that we can officially close out your awards in our system. Something important, last 45 days, any purchases you're making, you want to make sure that they are justified and that they will be received and used. Otherwise, we wouldn't want to put that on the sponsored awards as kind of a rule of thumb. And that's about it. If you have specific questions for your analyst, I can, Karen and Jill, I can send you this link that's here for contacting a grant expert, so we can get everybody to the right person. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So we do have, it's just all of 2 minutes, but Jessica sent me a message and said that you guys would be open to a question or two if we received them. So there is a question that came from a principal investigator asking, is there any help within your offices for annual reports that are required by granting institutions? So is there a team, or are there a group of people that PIs can come to if they have to start putting together their annual package?
Yeah, I could take that one. Generally, the answer is no. That's not the role of sponsored projects. With that said, depending on the sponsor, depending on the what's required in the report, especially if there's expenditures, an expenditure aspect to it, please do reach out to our office. We will provide those numbers to make sure it's accurate. Every report is a little bit different in terms of writing the science or putting it together, typically not, but if there's an institutional aspect to it, and that's why expenditures that's what we typically see in reports, and where we would get involved is to just verify those numbers, and sometimes we have to sign as an institutional official on the report. So we might just kind of give it a look over to make sure it looks okay, but in actually putting it together, that's typically not what our office does.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. With that, there's just a minute left, and instead of throwing another question towards you guys, I just want to say on behalf of the health sciences, thank you for everything that your office does and the teams that you have within it. What you do is handle a significant amount of volume and very intricate detail, and otherwise things would not be moving along and research would not be moving along without your teams. So we very much appreciate everything that you do. And I would just say to any of the new investigators, the new team members, or even established people, always be kind, be gentle, because the sponsored project people, they are churning constantly and have a lot coming at them. And so even though we're all not in the same space and we don't get to interact very often, there's a really good group of people over there. So always just keep that in the back of your mind. So thanks for your great presentations today.